Welcome to Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show, brought to you by Bull Realty, the show for property owners and business leaders. Host Michael Bull brings you market analysis, advice, and opportunities around Atlanta.
Well, welcome to Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. This segment is brought to you by my company, Bull Realty. Visit bullrealty.com. We provide asset and occupancy solutions. Today we're talking about the office market. Please welcome my guest, Mark Vollbrecht. He's principal with Zeller Realty Group, and they own office properties all around the country and significant properties right here in Atlanta. He's in Studio One with me. Mark, thanks for being with us.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
So from your desk, how do you see the Atlanta office market today?
Yeah. Atlanta office market is healthy. And just from some perspective, I've been here for about a year and a half, so I don't have any long-term history. And I'm from Chicago, from the Midwest. And one of the things that really excites us about Atlanta is just the amount of population growth that we see here in Atlanta. And the population growth is educated. It's 2.5 times national average for millennials specifically. That next group of workers, the people that are going to fill up our office buildings, it's over 3 times the national average. So we're getting the right type of people to fill office buildings. Interestingly enough, Atlanta, which has kind of been known as a developer's town, really has a very low amount of new construction going on right now. So a fair amount of discipline. And so we think those are all good things.
Yeah. Well, I was looking at a study this morning, and it talked about how, we're getting a lot of jobs, but we're seeing some tenants give up space, and where occupancy isn't really improving significantly. I guess every building and submarket's different.
Sure.
But are you seeing good tenant traffic right now? And,
yeah. And I think what we see now, granted, we have buildings that certainly are well located, and we're providing new investments to those. So we're attracting good growth tenants. I think it's very difficult to find a tenant with a good business with a growth plan that is not taking physically more space.
Okay.
Salesforce just announced a new commitment to Atlanta yesterday. Mm-hmm. Announced hiring more people, and they're taking more space for more people. Those are the tenants that we're going after. And I think, statistically, there's probably, one of the primary things going on in Atlanta right now is AT&T, who has really shed workers for a long time, but had long-term leases, are now actually at the end of those leases. They're giving space back. But quite frankly, that space had already been kind of functionally vacant in many cases anyway. Mm-hmm. So that's affecting the statistics, but those are buildings that presumably will be repositioned in the marketplace. They're well located on MARTA lines. We think actually mass transportation here in Atlanta is a great benefit to Atlanta that the millennials get, people hiring millennials get. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if the long-term locals get it quite yet, but it's a significant difference. So I think those buildings will come back in stock. I think they'll be leased up, and they'll do well.
You can invest and do invest all over the country. You can invest all over the world. What else excites you about investing in Atlanta?
It really is as fundamental as the population growth that I've already talked about. Yeah. We came here once again from Chicago and Illinois, which certainly has some level of dysfunction. Atlanta seems to be well run. Georgia seems to have some good things going on. Your educational system is really superb. I mean, having Georgia Tech located right in the center of the city, the growth of Georgia State. I'm not sure if the locals understand the impact that makes on employers. Yeah. And then the office market. I think CODA is a good example. The opportunity to be located and partnered with Georgia Tech is certainly driving some people to look at Midtown. Mm-hmm. Because, and you can say rent is high, but this is really, the opportunity is even greater than the rent is high.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think if you put it in perspective, Atlanta rents compared to the major cities around the country, the rent is not really high.
Well, it's not really high at all. And if you look at all the components, construction, where it's certainly higher now than it was 3 years ago, relative to the rest of the country, this is a low-cost construction market. Housing, low-cost housing. Well, how does housing affect? Well, if I'm an employer, I can actually pay less for a worker here in Atlanta. Okay. They can still have a better quality of life than possibly a larger city. So it's not just office rents. It's all the components that go into it. And it's, having been here now almost 2 years, this is a fun place to live.
Yeah, well, I like it. Let me ask you this, though. You came from Chicago. You've been to all these other cities. You've owned properties in other cities. What could Atlanta do better? What could the leadership here do that would, since you've been around, you're new, what's your perspective there?
Well, in the brief time period I've seen, I think the leadership has worked well under the old mayor and what will soon be our old governor. There was a cooperation between the state and the city, which I think is always challenging because sometimes there's two different perspectives. So I think going forward, if we can have with the new mayor and what will be our new governor the same level of cooperation of working together, I think that's going to be great for Atlanta as well as Georgia to come. It's really as simple as what can we do to attract jobs and maintain jobs, because unless you're independently wealthy, and Michael, you may be, but unless you're independently wealthy, you need a job. That is a primary part of your quality of life. Yeah. And so let's work together to make this attractive place for companies to do business in. That means people can pay their mortgage, they can go out to eat, they can go to a Falcons game, they can have fun. Yeah. So that's just fundamental. Let's work together to get that. On maybe more of a local basis, let's continue to invest in transportation, mass transportation infrastructure. I think that's important. Yeah. And roads and MARTA are both public transportation systems. We need to understand that. They're both subsidized by the government, and we need to keep building those. And maybe lastly, shouldn't say lastly, is really education. Yeah. And this is important to companies, as we need an educational system that is providing the workers for the future, meaning that we have to have good fundamentals in their technical education, science and math. These are important things that are important in other countries, not maybe as important in the United States. Needs to be focused on that. But it's also good for workers. If you want workers to come here, they need a place to send their kids to school. Even millennials will have kids. They will make the same decisions that our generation's made. So that is something really only the government and the community together can do, is work on schools.
Yeah, and when these people come here, a lot of them are going to need office space. So if you will, tell the audience a little bit about some of your properties and what you're doing there to attract tenants.
Sure. We'll kind of go from the inside out. We purchased 100 Peachtree, which is right downtown, very urban environment. There we're really engaging the community because of the urban lifestyle that's already there. We have a park right across the street. So how can we activate the park? How do we have events going on in the park, whether it's Christmas caroling, whether it's partnering up with the Rialto Theater that's right next to us to put on a little show in our plaza. How do we make that building part of the community? And we're finding that's resonating with our tenants, resonating with their employees, but really embracing the neighborhood. A lot of investment also on amenity space inside the building there. That's where the kegerator's going to. As we move up into...
Of course, it's just Gatorade in there, right?
Kombucha, I think is what we're doing. Isn't it what millennials like? I think kombucha. There might be a beer there every now and then. Okay. When we move out to Buckhead, we bought Resurgence Plaza, which is located directly on top of a MARTA station. It has a wonderful setback that we're going to build an outdoor deck on the 14th level, which has a gorgeous view of Buckhead and Midtown and downtown. And we've found, we've already built a deck at an office building in Minneapolis where I think it's only warm enough maybe 2 months out of the year to go out there. And it was a huge success. And so we anticipate here in Atlanta, we've already had a lot of brokers and tenants come to us with an interest of this because it'll be a private deck. If you're our tenant, you can use it. If you're not our tenant, sorry, we can't. But it's a wonderful third space for companies to use to help attract workers.
I think that's fantastic. I was just talking to one of my brokers yesterday, and we're talking about our next space. This is called Studio One because we're going to have Studio Two somewhere. Okay. And we're thinking, I really have to have some outdoor space. Have that space.
Michael, I'm glad I came. And because there's very few places you can get that outdoor space. And then when you consider that we'd put you right on top of a MARTA connection, which essentially gives you access to the world through the airport and the direct connection. I can't think of a better place. This might actually have to become Studio 2.
You know what?
Studio 1 might have to go to Resurgence Plaza.
So we might just do a lease deal right here on air.
There you go. The other building is just right down the street from your current location here in Central Perimeter, Premier Plaza. Absolutely a great outdoor patio in something that's so unusual for suburban office product. We have walkable retail right across the street. So there's 6 different restaurants that people can go to. Really provides a connectivity in a suburban environment with great access to 400 and 285 that you just don't get in a typical suburban building. Usually what defines a suburban building is you drive there in the morning, you do your work. Oh, it's lunchtime. Let's get in our car, let's sit in traffic and go someplace else and be back from lunch late, and then work till 5 o'clock and go home. And so with Premier Plaza, we actually have the ability, and whether you just want to sit outside in the patio and get food from our in-house food service, or walk across the street that has a crosswalk, just like the big city, you can do that. And it's really that continuation of work that employers really love and our tenants really love.
What size is that building and how many stories is that one?
It's actually 2 buildings. It's 330,000 square feet combined. One is 10, one is 7. Interestingly enough for you, and now that I think that we could do a package deal with Studio 1 and Studio 2, there's a 2,000 square foot kind of tree house, like a glass jewel box on the penthouse of the one building that I think would be ideal. You could look
down,
really
look down at the.
I don't want to say that. I don't want to say that, but you said it, and if that's what you want, that's what we will give you.
No, I don't look down on anyone. All right. So, what's in the future for you guys here in Atlanta?
Sure. In the future is to continue to invest, continue to develop relationships with both brokers and tenants, and so much of this as a new guy is pretty simple. We need to do what we say we're going to do. And we've found in other markets that some people just don't do that. So we'll continue to invest, we'll continue to expand the relationships and continue to figure out by asking what do tenants want and how we can deliver that to them, because that's really what you're supposed to do for your customers, right?
Are you the only building in Atlanta with a kegerator? Have you not?
My guess is there might be 1 or 2 other ones with kegerators, but we will have 2 buildings that both have kegerators.
Awesome.
And so come over and we'll give you a beer one.
Mark, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Good to be here.
And thank you for joining us for Atlanta's Commercial Real Estate Show.